Welcome everyone to the DAZN Soccer Show. The Premier League is back. A couple of big games as well on the weekend. We've just previewed the North London derby. Surprise, surprise, who Martin Keown and Lianne Sanderson have picked to win that one. Make sure you go and watch that one on the DAZN platform. Manchester derby is on Sunday as well. Big game. Manchester United going to the Etihad. Erik ten Hag versus Pep Guardiola. Let's get stuck into this one, guys. First question first to you, Lianne. How does anyone stop Erling Haaland?
I mean, I'm really worried about it, to be fair. I don't think anyone can. I think some players, you can watch them, you can say show them on their left, you can say show them on their right, get tight, stand off of them. But there's some players you just have to hold your hands up and say, they're undefendable, really. You can't get near him. I mean, he can score different types of goals. He can throw acrobats in the air, as we saw in the Champions League. And I never thought it was a doubt in anyone's mind that he would score goals in the Premier League. I just don't think we realise how many he would. And I think at times people often talk about the players that don't adapt to the Premier League quickly. I mean, this guy's an absolute machine. So I am concerned. I am worried. But the only hope that I have is Martinez and Varane. If they're both fit and healthy after international duty, they've done really well as a partnership in the last few games. Obviously, Harry Maguire's come off the back of not so great international break. He probably won't play because he doesn't really play in the Premier League that much. He plays in the Europa League. But I am worried. But what a player Erling Haaland is. And to be fair, I am delighted he's playing in the Premier League and we get to watch a player like him week in, week out, as much as it pains me to say it as a Man United fan.
Martin, you've played against some of the all-time greats when it comes to forwards and wingers in the Premier League. You've done well against them as well. How would you deal against someone like Haaland, someone so big, someone so strong and fast?
Well, I'm looking at. I mean, I think you've got to be very aggressive against him. I'm just looking at Martinez, and everyone's saying, maybe he's not big enough. But I tell you what, I think he's aggressive enough. It's just that there will be a moment when maybe he gets pinned at the far post where that, 5'9" won't be enough. I read this morning the Yap Stamp saying that there are lots of big players who don't play well and get things wrong. And this guy's the full package. But I do feel it is a concern about his height. But I was never the biggest of central defenders. The likes of Bold and Adams around me were probably a couple of 2 inches more. I was 6'1", 6'2". They're 6'4", 6'5". And if you're the smaller man, you've got to make up for that, and you're trying to prove that point. And that might be something he'd be looking to do against Haaland. But Haaland is so aggressive, so hungry, and when he decides to put the metal down and to run into space, he's gone his way. So you've got to be really quick, but you've got to be his worst nightmare. You cannot. When you play against someone for the first time, in their little black book, it's got to say, sorry, don't want to play against him because he was a nightmare. And that's what these two defenders have to be about against City. But City now look like they're going through the gears. Man United, though, in a good moment, winning the last 4 games. So again, it's some great derby games this weekend. Obviously, we've got the East Midlands derby to talk about later. But this is another one up there. These two teams now, Manchester United have turned a massive corner with this new manager, but can they sustain it?
I was dreading, this fixture when I saw it at the beginning of the season after going. I've been to, a few Man United away games this year. I was at the Brentford Community Stadium. If you'd have said to me, we would have beaten Arsenal and Liverpool in that time, I didn't think it looked like we knew where our first point was going to come from. To be honest, we didn't look like scoring. And I know when it's your own team, you kind of are more hypercritical, but genuinely we were that bad. And it does seem like, maybe Erik ten Hag bringing the players in on a Sunday on their day off seemed to have worked, because from that moment on, it seemed to have brought the group closer together and we've just been rejuvenated. I'm not getting carried away, but going back to Haaland as well, I think you have to cut off the supply to him. And I think when Foden plays for Manchester City, he's completely different to when he plays for England. He's unbelievable. Foden's another player. And then if you stop Foden, you've got to stop Kevin De Bruyne. So, they've got absolutely incredible players all over the pitch for them individually. And these players always step up. My only concern is that with Manchester United, the players have stepped up, in recent weeks. Even McTominay, I think, has been fantastic. And I never thought I'd ever say that. So, it just depends on what Man United turn up. So I'm actually looking forward to this game.
Go on then, score predictions. We have seen Man City have some blips this season. You think of the games against Newcastle and Villa. And Man United have played well against the big teams, beating Liverpool, beating Arsenal. How do you think they get on? Lianne, you're the Man United fan. You're first.
Head and my heart are telling me 2 different things. Haaland will score, as much as it pains me to say it, but I think it's going to be 2-2. It's always tight. I'm going to go 2-2.
Martin?
I'm going to say 2-0 to Man City. I think a reality check. I think the international break won't help Manchester United at all. It'd be rather like the start of their season. I think the manager does well when he's with the group for a while. Man City would just sit back together like a glove, as they always do, and I expect them to purr to victory against Manchester United at the weekend.
Yeah, it should be a cracking game. Martin, you mentioned the East Midlands derby. It's a big game for Brendan Rodgers, big game for Steve Cooper. I can't believe Leicester are sitting at the bottom of the table. 1 point, they've conceded 22 goals, which is ridiculous at this stage of the season. How do you think this one plays out, Leicester versus Forest?
Well, there's so much riding on this game because both managers now sitting very quite uncomfortable. You think about the money, 21 signings at Forest. That would have been very difficult to try to work out which is your best 11. Can you imagine all those players coming through the door all at once? That's really difficult to take on board. Okay, you've got a lot. It's a good problem because you've got lots of options, but you, as the manager, have got to sort that puzzle out, and that's not happening. And Brendan Rodgers is a real mystery. I think Ndidi now going back into midfield is really good news. Don't play him as a central defender. I think Faz has come in at central defender to play in there alongside Evans, and that looks a lot better. They played well against Spurs for long periods in their last game. You're going to look at it and say they lost 6-2, but Son came on and just put them away. So there's signs there that they're recovering, but if they don't win this one, I don't think Brendan can survive it. It's that important.
Yeah, look, massive game for him, isn't it, Leanne? It's weird when you look at this Leicester side. You look at the team that lined up against Tottenham, and there is still some very, very good players in that 11. Harvey Barnes and Ndidi, Tielemans, Maddison, Patson Daka up front. It's crazy to see that they have only 1 point on board. Yeah, they need to start getting wins. Will they get it against Forest?
The thing is, as well, with Leicester, I mean, I was at the King Power Stadium the other week against Man United, and they don't look like they're at the races. You know, there was a lot of unforced errors, a lot of things you don't uncharacteristically like see in the Premier League. And I think the only player for me that's actually playing at the top of their game is Maddison. I know there's a lot of talk about Tielemans, but I just don't think he's looked the same since he was injured last year. You know, he just hasn't. And obviously, there was talk about him leaving. And for me, them losing Kasper Schmeichel, I think is a massive loss to that club. I really do. Their captain, their leader. And I was really surprised that he went over to Nice in that way because I don't think they realised how much of an impact that would be on the team. I'm not saying that's the only reason why they're bottom of the league and can't get a win, but I thought that Brendan Rodgers would almost go during this international break, and I think a lot of people thought the same. I like Brendan Rodgers as a manager, as a person, and I think a lot of people do, but it doesn't look like it looks like something's got to give at Leicester, and it doesn't look like the players are giving enough. And unfortunately, I think it always comes down to the manager, doesn't it? The manager is always going to be the casualty when the team isn't performing. So if they were to lose against Nottingham Forest, I mean, I agree with Martin. I think it's going to be a difficult situation because the Leicester fans are not happy. And also, I think they've overachieved in recent years, following on from them winning the league a few years ago, but winning the FA Cup, you know, in the way that they did. I think sometimes the fans have to kind of have a word with themselves a little bit and find a middle ground because I think Leicester have far overachieved with the squad that they've had. And Jamie Vardy, you know, when he's not scoring goals and he's not putting away chances, Leicester don't look the same. So, you know, Leicester is still a good team. They're in the bottom of the table. I'm really surprised in that, but something's got to give somewhere for me.
It's a really good point about the goalkeeper. I was in France during the week watching Denmark play France, and Schmeichel was quite brilliant on the day. Denmark won. Denmark won the game, and I feel it's a bit like pulling the plug out of the bath, almost by taking him out of the team. And Brendan has a habit of doing this. Of maybe taking a big player out. Gerrard probably left too soon from Liverpool. I think Carragher as well was allowed to leave too soon. He wanted to create change and he took the wrong person out. And that's a really poor judgment. And a lot of what's happened since is down to the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper at Leicester at the moment is having a shocking time. But there isn't a replacement for Ward. They've got to play him. So Schmeichel being taken out of there hasn't worked at all. But let's just see. I think it's time for character. I think it's time for unity. I like Maddison, but I think he can be a liability when we're not in possession of the ball. But they used him really well last week against Spurs, but still got battered 6-2. So he has to find a way, Brendan, otherwise he's going out the door, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it looks like he will go out the door regardless. What are you thinking? Results here. Leicester need to win. So do Forest, to be honest, but more pressure on Leicester. We're at home. Go on, score predictions. You first, Martin.
I'm going to go with a Leicester win. I don't know what the score will be. That's almost impossible, but I think they will find 3 points for the first time this season.
What do you think, Leanne? Leicester, 3 points first time this season?
Yeah, I think it has to happen. I think Leicester will win, and my prediction will be 2-1 Leicester. But I agree with Martin. It's unpredictable, isn't it? This Leicester team, but I think they'll win 2-1.
Yeah, look, some massive other games as well in the Premier League this weekend. We're going to reflect on those next week. Liverpool versus Brighton, Chelsea's first game under Graham Potter in the league against Crystal Palace. We'll reflect on all of those. Thank you so much to Martin. Thank you so much to Lianne. We'll catch you next week.